Water, earth, air,
And my personal favorite,
fire.
why do I love fire so much? Is it because I'm an arsonist who just wants to watch the world burn?
Some men just want to watch the world burn.
No, I'm not that crazy. FIRE is an acronym for Financial Independence Retire Early and is used by people to hit their retirement goals early and enjoy the rest of their lives, hopefully while they're still young. You could wake up every day at 8 a.m., get ready for work, leave for work at 9 a.m., spend 8 hours there, 6 of which are unproductive, then come back home at 5 p.m., try to do some hobby but realize you're too tired for anything else and go to sleep, then wake up again the next day to rinse and repeat. Maybe you get paid enough to enjoy the weekends or get to have a week-long vacation every now and then, but your paycheck is determined by your employer. You have to take their permission for when you can go on vacation, you have rules to follow, and worst of all, your freedom is limited. If you are watching this channel, then you are probably amongst the few who don't find a typical life like this that society has constructed for you to be very fulfilling, and hence you likely want a way to escape the so-called rat race. That's where the FIRE movement comes in. FIRE is all about finding ways to help you retire as soon as possible while still making enough money to pay the bills, and maybe even splurge a little bit on top of that. And the key part is to accomplish all that without having to work a regular job anymore. Now, many people in the FIRE movement typically do have a 9-to-5 at the beginning of their burning journeys, but their strategy is to boost their income as much as possible, keep expenses as low as possible, and invest the difference. FIREes generally want to invest their money into something safe, but known for returning a decent amount of money in the long term. Typically, they want to put their money in a broad market index fund or some sort of exchange traded fund. An index fund, for those of you that are unfamiliar, is a fund that tracks a specific index. When you buy an index fund, instead of buying an individual company, you buy a basket of companies that follows a certain index. A couple of examples that are popular with FIREes include VOO or SPY that invest in the S&P 500, which are the largest 500 companies in America, or VTI, which invest in the entire total stock market in America. Both of these funds and indexes have historically been known to return a decent amount of money in the long term, the key being the long term. Within some time periods, it is possible for the stock market to be down. So if you had invested in the peak of that market, sometime later you could be down your hard-earned cash. But a study found that there has never been a rolling 20-year period where the stock market was down. As a matter of fact, on average, the stock market returns about 10% a year. Of course, it goes down some year, like during the 2020 COVID outbreak or the 2008 financial crisis, but over the long run, the S&P 500 and total stock market will make you money. 10% may not seem like much at first. After all, if you have $100 invested, 10% is only $10. So at the end of the year, you will only have $110. But that interest is compounded, meaning after the second year, you won't have 10% of that $100, but $110. So after year 2, you will be at $121 instead of $120, and so on and so forth. As a matter of fact, we can use a compound interest calculator to see how much we will have after a certain period of time, principal, and the growth. You can Google compound interest calculator or use the link in the description below. Firstly, we will use some default numbers to get a feel for how much time, principal, and return on investment influences the total value of your investments. We're going to stick with mostly realistic numbers here that I think can be done by anyone. So for this first example, let's say we invest $100 monthly for 10 years, and we get that 10% interest rate, and we're going to compound it annually. After those 10 years, we would have invested $12,000, but we would have an investment worth about $19,000. Now let's go back. Let's change our monthly contribution. Let's say we double all of these, right? Double our monthly contribution first and keep the other two the same. Now, after 10 years, our $24,000 principal will be worth about $38,000. Now, let's go back to $100 a month, but do that for 20 years. Let's see how much it'll be worth. Our $24,000 total contribution will be worth about $68,000. Now let's do $100 for 10 years at double the interest rate. Now, our $12,000 contribution after those 10 years will be worth about $31,000. So as you can see, all of these affect our total investment portfolio. Now let's keep all the changes. $200 for 20 years at 20%. And after those 20 years, our investment will be worth about $450,000. As you can quickly see, the amount we invest, the time we have it invested for, and the rate of return all influence how much money we will have. And with that, we can see the three things fireys want to optimize in order to maximize profits. However, the rate of return is hard to control. It's about 10% a year, but you do not determine that. The market determines that. Many people, in the best case scenario, can start investing in their 20s and want to retire as soon as possible, so maybe before the 30s or 40s. That gives them a 10, 15, 20 year time period to invest. And if you started much later than your 20s, you may not have as much time as you think. So the last factor, our principal, is what many fireys want to maximize. That's the part where they live frugally so they can have as much investing money as possible. Now going back to our compound interest calculator, if we make $5,000 a month, which is about the average household income in America, and invest $1,000 of it, or 20%, after 10 years, we'll have about $190,000. Which is quite a lot, but probably not enough to retire. So that is when fireys get desperate. They might start penny pinching and even get a side hustle to earn more money, and do that for years, let's say 15 years. Then invest the majority of their paycheck. In our hypothetical $5,000 a month example, a firey may try to invest about $3,000 a month of it. And after those 15 years and that average 10% return, we will have over $1.1 million, which is a respectable amount to retire on. Is it really that easy? Is that all it takes to retire? Not really. This is by no means an easy task. You need to ask yourself, how much money do you need to retire? $1 million? $2 million? $10 million?
$100 billion.
What kind of lifestyle do you want to live in retirement? All of these questions are valid questions to ask, and depending on your answers, retiring early might be later than expected for you. When it comes to the FIRE movement, there tends to be two types of FIRE. Lean FIRE is all about making enough to enjoy your life as is. They typically want to make enough to cover their current expense, which is about the average salary, so let's say anywhere between $30,000 to $70,000 a year. They decide they can live off a lean amount of money. Then there is fat FIRE, for people who either want to retire very early or live retirement lavishly. Basically, fat FIRE is more aggressive than lean FIRE. A common rule for determining how much money you need for retirement is the 4% rule. This is how much of your money you can withdraw to support yourself while still having your investment grow. Let's say your cost of living expense is about $50,000 a year. Then you divide that number by 0.04 or 4%, and poof, there you have it. The amount of money you need to have invested in order to retire. This number is often referred to as the nest egg. It's about how much you need your investments to be worth in order to comfortably retire according to the 4% rule. So now we can go back to our compound interest calculator and see how much we need to invest and for how long. In the rate of return, we need the amount of money we will have for retirement. And of course, the more lavish you want your retirement to be, the more you will have to invest for longer. You can play with these numbers until you see something that you are comfortable with. For many people, FIRE is a long and grueling process. It requires more than just looking at the numbers to retire. As a matter of fact, the emotions and willpower is more important than the numbers. Many people can't just live frugally for over a decade or two just to retire. If you want to live your life, then that is completely fine. It's best to invest a little amount of money and allow time on your side to grow your wealth so you may not be so worried about when you will retire. You definitely should not sacrifice your health and mental well-being so you can retire a bit earlier, but the purpose of this video is to show FIRE is and all the possibilities that come with it. And if you're watching this channel, then you will likely be interested in the FIRE movement yourself. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for further updates.